Hi guys, my name is Kismet here. We're going to be going through onboarding today. Everyone should be in a frigate in R10, and we're going to go ahead and go with it. If you've not joined a fleet before, I will link in Newbeans a link to go ahead and show where fleet is. Let's start with a little bit on your neocom. The neocom is the bar, and the E in the upper left-hand corner is the neocom menu, and then there's a bar on the left-hand side. I would recommend you find the fleet button under neocom, social, and fleet, and then drag it onto the bar on the left-hand side. I'll give you a minute to do that. Go ahead and go to neocom, social, fleet, drag that onto the bar on the left-hand side. You always want to have that available. The other ones that are really helpful for me anyway is driving under the E and finance and contracts. Contracts are how you go ahead and find ships. And the last one I really like is under the E and then utilities and log and messages. Log and messages allows you to go ahead and see what's been happening around you. You can see who's done a scramble, stuff like that. You just click and drag it onto the neocom on the left-hand side, and then it's always easy to find. So I think everybody's in fleet right now. We're going to start with setting up a watch list here. My name is Kismet here, so I'm going to go ahead and put A's in fleet. You can go ahead and right-click on my name, go to fleet, add to watch list. By adding me to a watch list, a new window will pop up. You want to make sure that you can see that window elsewhere, and this makes it easy to go ahead and see the status of everyone's health. You can see their shield, their armor, armor. You can also click and hit Control A. You should hear me talking. If you don't hear me talking, you need to be in Mumble. We're in NBI Classroom 1. Okay. Does everyone? I think everyone's in fleet. There's a couple key channels that you want to have open when you're go ahead and flying out. There is a Newbeans channel, which I think you guys are already involved. And if any questions you have, just ask them there generally. If you have the question, other people have the question too. So encourage conversation about it. The other ones that you want to go ahead and join is something called Bean Intel. This shows you what is going on around the TKE area, which is our home. And that way you can see what hostile things are going on. If you check that right now, you can see that there's some people flying around in a couple jumps away in 9P4, etc. So honestly, pretty close. If we were in a tackle class, we would totally chase those people down and die in a fire. So we are a very open community. Realize that we allow anyone to join us. This can cause some problems sometimes. We do get spies very often, so you do want to be careful about saying, you know, oh, I'm flying my Obelisk, which is a giant, very expensive ship, in this particular system doing this specific thing, because you might have a spy come chase you down. However, we're very accepting of new players, and so you kind of have that balance between new players finding what they want to do and then having fun, etc. Does anyone have questions about any of the stuff I've gone over so far? Okay, so once we have that set up, we're going to go ahead and set up your watch list, or associated with the colors. You can go ahead and change the colors on people by clicking the hamburger menu in the watch list, and you can go ahead and change my color to a unique color by go ahead and go to watch list, the hamburger menu, enter color edit mode, and then you can go ahead and add some colors to different people. Note there is also a color field within the within broadcasts. You should definitely have the fleet window open and open up the history tab. I will link that now. Give me a second here. If I can find it. So basically, after you open up fleet, there is a history tab. Other people can hear me, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. And I'm going to go ahead and share with you a broadcast settings. If you click on this thing, it will permanently change your broadcast settings, but that's fine. You can always go ahead and change them later. These are the defaults that we tend to use associated with it. And this makes sure that when you call for shields, it shows up as blue, reds, show up as targets, etc. So this goes ahead and just makes your life a little bit easier to figure out what's happening in the broadcast history field. I'm going to go ahead and undock now. Everyone can go ahead and undock. Undock. I'm kind of watching I've added you all to my watch list by hitting Control A and dragging it into the watch list here. So I'm waiting for Ryla, who can't hear me, and Domamine, who I think is delayed. Okay, anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and broadcast for armor now. You'll notice that my shield shows up as an S. I've rebound that to S. Rebinding your keys for broadcasting for shields and stuff like that can be helpful. If I'm going to go ahead and target something, I'm going to hit broadcast to keep star. You can see that it turns up blue, shows up red. This makes it very easy to go ahead and keep separate the different activities. So you know that you're not in a shield wrapping ship. You can kind of ignore those ones. And you can also right click on those and go to ignore this type of broadcast if you want. That way you can ignore the people calling for shields and just focus on the people calling for targets. Are there any questions on this?
Okay, I missed something. Where am I supposed to be seeing your target?
In the fleet and history thing, there's a link in fleet. If you click on it, it'll point a little pointer towards it.
Thank you.
Let me know if you got that open.
Got it now.
Okay, terrific. The first thing we're going to do is doing what's called anchoring. There's a couple different versions of anchoring. Don't get confused. Don't worry about it if you get confused. This is hard. This is a hard game. You don't need to feel bad about asking for questions. You're comparing yourself to people who've been playing the game for, 20 years. So don't ever feel bad about asking questions. Don't ever feel bad about being confused. It's a hard game. So just be aware of that. Don't get frustrated. It's worth it in the end, I assure you. Anyway, so what we're going to go ahead and do first is we're going to work on something called anchoring. I would like everyone to anchor up on me. What that means is you're going to go to your watch list. You're going to right click on me and you're going to go ahead and do keep at range 1,000 meters. Everyone should anchor on me, keep at range 1,000 meters. Once you've kept that range, you can go ahead and turn on your propulsion mode. I would recommend reordering your modules a little bit. I'll get to that in a second. But your propulsion mod is your afterburner or micro warp drive. I suspect everyone in here has a micro warp drive. The micro warp drive is a little bit faster and it causes some other side effects, but it is the most common mod on most tackle ships. So we're all in frigates. And so when I say turn on your prop mode, that means you're going to go ahead and turn on your micro warp drive or afterburner, and everyone should go ahead and keep at range on me. If you're in a very fast ship and you're with a slow fleet, you might also just do an orbit by keeping a transversal up. By go ahead in a circle, you'll be harder to hit profile, and it can make it harder for an enemy fleet to track you, and it's much easier to survive. So everyone should go ahead and be anchored on me at this point. Looks like we got a couple that aren't, but that's okay. We got a bunch of you that are, which is fantastic. We're going to go ahead and line a direction. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to broadcast an align to. I would like everyone that has the fleet history window open to right click on that and go to align to. You can turn off your prop mode while you're aligning. If you're aligning with your prop mode on, it can sometimes slow you down. We're then going to go ahead and do what's called a fleet warp. So I'm going to go ahead and warp us to a point there. Hopefully we'll call that. And you notice that when we're all aligned, we all go into warp at the exact same time. Everyone in Eve goes into warp as soon as they hit 75% of their maximum speed. So anything that changes that value can adjust your time it takes to get into warp. But you can see that we're all landing on this little structure here, and we're getting what's something called tether. You can see below your capacitor window, there's a little icon. If you hover over it, it says tethered. It's right below where your speed is. This shows that you are protected. You also can look in space, and you can see there's a little sliver of a line out to your ship. While you are tethered, you cannot be shot. You can be bumped into, but you cannot be shot. You can't be targeted, etc. If I go ahead and target this structure here, this Rotaro, you notice I lose tether. My little string that connects me to the structure disappears. I would like everyone to go ahead and do that now. You can hold down the control key and click on the structure. You can do this control click from the fleet window, or you can do it from the overview, or you can just look at it in space. Okay, it looks like everyone managed to break tether. Everyone can go ahead and stop targeting this thing. You can unlock targets by hitting control and shift and clicking on your target, and that will remove the target, and then everyone will get tether back up. Looks like everyone's pretty experienced already. They've already flown on a little bit. You understand that. This is fantastic. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking a little bit about I'm sorry, I went ahead and said something that I wanted to go ahead and cover. I would like you to reorder your modules to make your life easier. The reason you reorder your modules is to go ahead and make sure that you're doing the right thing, or you're in the right place and doing the right thing. So the most important thing to do in fleets is to be in the right place. You should be warping someplace, you should be following the FC, you should be anchoring, etc. That's more important than shooting. It's a hard lesson to learn. Because if you're in the wrong place and you're shooting something, you're not going to hit. If you're trying to get a scramble on something and you're not burning them with your micro warp drive, you're not going to reach them. So I recommend dragging your modules in the middle, specifically the micro warp drive. Go ahead and drag that up to the F1 key. By dragging it up to the F1 key, you should be able to go ahead and basically remind yourself, oh, I should be burning at things when I want to go fast. The second one you want to do is your warp scrambler or your warp disruptor, whichever you have. If you have a web, make sure that's third or fourth. Realize that it's more important to get a scramble first and then put a web on. If you web someone, remember if they're going 400 meters per second and you web them, they go to 200, their speed to get into warp just dropped to 150 instead of 300. So it's better to get a scrambler or a disruptor on first and then get a web. And then finally, the last thing you do is your guns. It's an odd thing to think about, but your guns are the least important module on your ship when you're getting to a fight, because that's the last thing you do before you start doing basically everything else. If you'd like, you can also go ahead and move if you have a tanking module, you can move that up to one of there as well. And realize that you can use the F1 through the F8 key on your keyboard, if you have the defaults, to go ahead and map those. And it makes it very easy for you to go ahead and remind yourself, oh yeah, I need to be in the right place. Are there any questions on that? If you have any passive modules, you can move down to the F2 key so you can just see heat and stuff like that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and change our fleet formation a little bit here. We're going to go ahead and warp around a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and do another fleet warp to another location. This is going to be the wall formation. So this is going to be slightly different. We're going to land very spaced out. There are different fleet formations that you can warp to. Because I just did a cold warp, people didn't know where I was warping to. People are going to go into warp at the same speed, but everyone's going to warp at the speed of the lowest speed ship. So you might have heard someone ask if they could bring a Vexor or something like that. If we brought a Vexor, our warp speed goes down dramatically because we're going to warp at the speed of the Vexor. But because we're all in frigates, we're all going to warp very quickly. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and link a picture of the fleet broadcast. We've already gone through that a little bit. I recommend doing the disruptor first and then the scrambler. Your scrambler might not catch because of the range on that. Okay, so right now we need to go ahead and find a location. We're going to go ahead and find a fleet member that is in a distant location. Let's say you got disconnected. You don't know where everybody is. We're going to try and catch up with that person. The person we're going to catch up with is known as No Hauling. He's out there. He just put a dot in fleet. He says he's in a distant location. He would like everyone to go ahead and catch up with him. If you guys open up your map, it's F10. If you don't have it on the left-hand side, it looks like a little M thing with stars. You can go to the gear icon in the upper left-hand corner. You can go under statistics, or no, sorry, personal, and go to My Fleet Members. So again, under the map, there's a gear icon in the upper left-hand corner. I don't know why they did a gear here and they do hamburger menus everywhere else, but you know, gear makes more sense. You go to personal and My Fleet Members. You can see that we show 8 records shown in R10, and then nearby there's another system that is nearby. I would like everyone in fleet to go ahead and go to that system now. You're going to burn on your own to go to that system. The outgate should be clear. So see if you can find the location. You can right click on the system that person is in and do set destination. Let me know if you're struggling with this. There's a large chunk of Eve you end up having to navigate yourself a little bit. It can be very confusing. Again, a hard game, so don't feel bad if you get confused. But everyone should be burning to the system that No Hauling is in.
I don't understand what I can see in the map.
You can go to the gear icon in the upper left-hand corner, go to personal and My Fleet Members. There's a red dot. And if you hover over that red dot, it shows you the person's name. And there's only one other red dot here, and that's BGMZ. And I'll go ahead and say broadcast travel to, if you haven't caught up to yet. When you guys get in here, I would like you to go ahead. I'll wait for everyone to catch up here. We're safe on this gate right now. There's no rats. So everyone can go ahead and burn to BGMZ. I think we got one more person. I don't know if they're going to catch up, but we'll see. Okay, cool. I think everyone's here. Everyone should be holding their cloak by default. You should only break cloak if you think that you're going to go ahead and not get something. So I'm going to go ahead and warp to a location. You guys can go ahead and warp to No Hauling. You can do this a couple different ways. If they're in your fleet, you can warp to them on grid. So you can right click on No Hauling, and as long as they're in your fleet, you can warp to them. Or you can click on them in chat and go to fleet, warp to member. I would like everyone to go ahead and warp to No Hauling at this point. This is going to go ahead and get us off the gate where rats can spawn and we can get hostiles. They could all come kill us, etc. We're all landing on what's called a jump gate Ansiblex. The jump gate Ansiblex that we're on, I'll link in fleet. So if you get lost, you can use the map to find your hostile fleet. Find the friendly fleet. When we've landed there, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the Ansiblex. So if you look at this Ansiblex here, it's a nice little link to a remote system. If we go ahead and jump through this Ansiblex, which everyone can do now, you can basically just left click on it and jump through. It might ask you to pay a fee associated with that. I'll talk to you about how to turn off that notification so you don't have to hit OK. This is basically the costs it takes to go ahead and jump through an Ansiblex is related to how much liquid ozone it uses. And this is a feature of the R10 area, TKE area, that we have a very large Ansiblex. And everyone should be holding cloak at this point. You'll see in the upper left-hand corner, it'll be ticking down. If you go ahead and open up your wallet, I'll link where your wallet is. Give me a second here. you can go ahead and turn off some of those notifications because you're not going to care under a certain amount. So go ahead and open up your wallet and go to automatic pay. And you can go ahead and put that like 2000 ISK. That's per unit of liquid ozone. If you have something that has above that, you know that you're getting ripped off and it's expensive, so you can think about it. And then click the checkbox next to activate jump gates. Now, we still have our friend back in no hauling in the remote location. We're all starting to lose cloak here at this point. We would like to go ahead and go back to no hauling, and we don't necessarily know where no hauling is. So we're going to again open up our map. It defaults to the same thing you used last time. And you can see there's this green line coming out of 1-K, and it's going to BGMZ. If you right click on BGMZ again and do set destination, it should be set to 1 jump. If it's not set to 1 jump, you have to turn on using including jump gates and route. And you find that under the A next to route. In the upper left-hand corner, there's a thing that says route, and there's an A next to it. You click on the A. In this case, they don't use the hamburger menu or gear icon. They use the A, and then include jump gate on route. And by the way, in nullsec, you always want to say prefer shorter. Any questions on that? This is a relatively complicated thing. And now your route to BGMZ should be 1 jump. If you ever want to go ahead and find out which way a hostile fleet has to take, go ahead and go to the A next to route and turn off include jump gates. And then how many jumps is it to BGMZ? Anybody? It's 10 jumps. So we're going to go ahead and turn back A, include jump gate. We're going to go ahead and have that 1 jump here. Okay. I would like everyone to do what's called burn back to gate. What this means is you're going to burn back the thing you just came through. By burning, that means best possible speed. So usually that means turn on your micro warp drive, get back to gate at 0, and be ready to go ahead and go through. Everyone with me so far? You guys can go ahead and close your map at this point. We know where we're going. We're going back to BGMZ. Okay, everyone can go ahead and, is everyone on the gate? Not quite. You want to turn off your micro warp drive when taking Ansiblexes, otherwise your liquid ozone fees go up because it increases the mass of your ship. So make sure your micro warp drive is off. Susanna, I think are you on it? Okay, cool. Yeah, I think so. No, not quite. Everyone should be on the Ansiblex. If you align to this thing right here and turn on your micro warp drive, you should be on it right away. Okay, I think we're all on it. We're going to go ahead and say the J word. Jump is a magical command. If you say jump at the wrong time, bad things can happen. So it's important that if you're not an FC, only tell people to jump if they really need to catch up. You really know what you're doing. So a lot of times we'll go ahead and say gates are red, gates are green. In this case, we're going to say gates are green. Everyone's going to jump, jump, jump. We'll say it that quick triple time, and that's just to go ahead and encourage people to remind that this is a special thing. If you jump at the wrong time, you will die. I'll point out, I've done it. I did it recently. It happens. We're going to hold cloak on the other side here. And we're going to go ahead and do an exercise calling burning pings. When you go through gates, sometimes you want to provide the FC warp ins to places. So we're going to go ahead and provide a ping associated with this particular gate thing. So I'd like everyone to go ahead and double click in space away from the structure and turn your micro warp drive and burn away as fast as possible. Once you get 150 kilometers away from something that is in space, you can go ahead and warp to it. So by burning a ping, you can provide warp-ins for your friends. You can provide places for our linked ships to burn off to. I'll point out, Domine, you're doing fantastic. burning off with your micro warp drive running. Everyone's micro warp drive's going. That's fantastic. Damage just happens to be faster than most of us. So
I overheated.
overheating is very pro. So nice job. You must be an experienced character.
Yes, I am old character. Just 5 years pause from the game.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Welcome back. So now that we're all 150 kilometers back away from this thing, we could warp back to this at any point. If we try to warp with our micro warp drive running, it can go ahead and make it slow to warp because, again, you have to slow down, turn around, and your mass is higher with your micro warp drive running. So you could turn off your micro warp drive and then warp back to something. But in this case, I'm going to do a cold warp to an off fleet member. This is going to go ahead and make our warp speeds very staggered because we're all micro warp driving in different directions. So we're all going to enter warp at slightly different times. And again, we're going to go the speed of the slowest member. We're going to land in a point, and this is in a deep safe that happens to be in BGMZ. It's not fully deep because it's still in scan of some things, but it's a pretty good one. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the different roles within ships. There's different types of roles in ships. I'll point out that right now we're all mainly in a tackle ship. I'll point out that no hauling is in a shuttle, so they're a different role. But the idea in EVE is that you want to go ahead and play a role that is going to be helpful for the friendly fleets around you. So right now we're in tackle. If we run into a very big guy, we can hold him down for a little while. He might kill us all, and it might take a little bit. You might notice that Kobe is actually in a probe. That's in an exploration class ship. And it has to do with what you do when you get into fights and things like that. There's a couple main ones. The main one that you're flying right now is tackle. Eventually, you might move up to something called EWAR. That stands for electronic warfare. That might be the Mollis or the Vigil or the Crucifier. And these allow you to go ahead and amplify the effects that we have on hostile fleets. A Vigil makes it much easier for us to hit people. A Mollis prevents them from locking as quickly or as far away. And the Crucifier prevents them from shooting guns at a certain distance or tracking those people once they reach out to that thing. So there's different, and there's level T2 level ones as you get experience. Like it's like, I don't know, 30 days to go ahead and be really professional, EWAR pilot, and it's like maybe 70 days to go ahead and be like in the next level stuff. All of these things are just time gated to go ahead and slowly allow your pilot skill, your ability as a pilot to catch up. Again, a hard game. So learning how to fly tackle is required of basically everybody. And it is a learned skill, and you just get better at it by practicing, dying. And eventually you get pretty good. So we've had a couple people just get really good just because they lost 50 ships, and then they lost another 50 of another ship, and now they're one of our best tacklers. The other ones that are important to us are DPS and Logi. So generally DPS will go ahead and make up about 70% of most fleets. That would be like, you might see Ferox fleets and Munin fleets and Caracal fleets. Those are all DPS ships. You have Logi ships, and that's like 30% of your fleet, or 30% of your fleet by volume. So if you have 100 people, you'll have 70 people in Feroxes, 30 people in Scimitars, and then everyone else kind of fills in the gaps. You need like one or two of basically all the other types of roles. Anyway, so we did a little bit of the holding on gates associated with it. I have a picture on that here. Go ahead and link that. That did not paste properly. I apologize. Let me try this again here. If you open up this image, the key is not to use the J word ever. I can say it because I'm the FC. You will never go ahead and say that. All you'll say is, what is the gate status? Is it green, etc. And then we also did a crashing the gate, and we did a little bit about the timer. Realize that when you land out of warp, there's a hidden timer that's about 10 seconds or so. So I'm going to go ahead and warp us back to a structure here. And basically, if the FC doesn't tell you to do something, basically you can ask the FC, hey, what are we doing? Try to be patient with them. Realize they're dealing with a lot of nonsense. If you annoy them, they will mute you. Certain FCs have muted me for being annoying because I like things to be clear for newbies. So we're going to land this. We're going to say gate is red. That means stop. Realize that after you come out of warp, there's an invuln timer that is hidden. You don't get a session change timer. A session change timer is like when you swap ships and things like that. That will cause a little timer to tick down in the upper left-hand corner. And we're going to go ahead and warp back to our buddy here. And then we're going to go ahead and do one other thing here. Give me a second here. Where is... Oh, I fleet warped all of us, so that doesn't work. That didn't work well. So, okay, we're gonna go ahead and warp to here. Hopefully, everyone caught that fleet warp. By the way, I would like everyone to go ahead and hit Control Space here. If you hit Control Space, it's going to stop your ship if you think you accidentally hit jump when you didn't mean to. When I said, you know, that gate is red. You can hit Control Space to make sure you didn't drop, you didn't jump, and make sure that you're not going to go ahead and mistakenly jump through something. So you guys notice that we're at 500 kilometers away from this gate right now. 500 kilometers is a magic number because it means that anything that happens within 500 kilometers or further than 500 kilometers away from you cannot affect you. You're only affected by things in warp, like bubbles and stuff like that, if they are closer than 500 kilometers from something. So it's a kind of a magic number. This is a really good number to know. And realize that there's also a grid size as well. And that grid size is about 20,000 kilometers. It's very, very big. And that's when it starts a new instance, essentially. Anyway, so we're going to talk, the last thing we're going to go ahead and talk about is talking about orbiting and keeping it range a little bit more in detail. Specifically, we're going to go ahead and work on tackling me. So I'd like everyone to go ahead and set up an orbit at their optimal and apply their E-War on me. That's going to be your micro warp drive or your warp disruptor or your web or something like that. Go ahead and target me by hitting Control and clicking on my name. You can click on my name in fleet, the watch list, or in fleet history, because I'm going to go ahead and broadcast myself. If this works. Okay, cool. So I've just broadcast the slasher that I'm in. So like everyone to go ahead and tackle me. So that means applying your micro warp drive, or applying your micro warp drive to get on top of me. Applying your warp disruptor to go ahead and stop me from warping off. Apply your web so I can't go very fast. You need to get into your optimal to go ahead and do so. So you can see right now I'm going extremely slow. I'm going 241. I only have one person with a web on me right now. You have to be in your optimal for it to change. Realize that you can change your default optimal. That shows up in, oh, no web on the slasher. Okay. So you can go ahead and change your default keep it orbit distance by right on the selected items in the upper right hand corner. There's a right click. You can do set default orbit, and you can set it to whatever your guns on your ship make it appropriate to go ahead and do. While I have a scrambler effect on me, the warp scrambler that I'm using also shuts off micro warp drives, so I can't go fast right now. If I just have a disruptor on me, I'll link one of those as well. This goes ahead and prevents me from warping off, but doesn't allow me from trying to run away. If everyone can drop their scrambler and just keep their disruptor on me, everyone can drop their scrambler. You should use the F1 through F8 keys to go ahead and mess with those to do that by default. You can turn off the Newt Rixla, because Newt actually hurts me.
Can you repeat the part real quick about custom orbit?
Sure. So basically there is, under selected items, you can change your default orbit and change your default keep at range.
Where selected items, where is that?
It'll be in the upper right-hand corner. You see it?
Yeah, I see it. And where am I supposed to change?
You can change your default orbit range to something that is appropriate for your ship.
Where do I do that within the selected item?
You right click on where it says orbit, looks like a circle with a dot in the center.
Thank you. Got it.
So you guys might notice that while he was talking, I managed to break tackle. By breaking tackle, you can go ahead and escape to allow you to live another day. Realize I'm not aligned anywhere, so I would have a hard time warping off. But none of you had your warp drive burning as fast as I did. I bursted my overheated micro warp drive, and so I managed to go 6,000 kilometers a second and managed to burn away from you. You can basically do one cycle of overheating without basically much damage at all. The second cycle on a micro warp drive will damage it quite a bit. Third cycle might kill it, and fourth cycle definitely will kill it. So you have to be careful about when you burst that stuff. So, and you see that I'm very hard to catch now because I'm far away from you, and you're unlikely to catch me because even if you can warp to me, just because I'm going so quickly. Tackle ships, your speed is your best ally, and you should definitely abuse that mechanic. Anyway, let's see if there's anything else you guys, if I went ahead and did anything on this. I'll point out that you should broadcast for things when you're getting lit up. There's a couple different ways to go ahead and see this. You can see this in game in the overview, where it'll go ahead and show you boxes to show who has you targeted. I went ahead and posted a picture of what that looks like. You only broadcast once you've had a bunch of them have been what's called yellow boxed you. I couldn't find any gate rats that weren't gonna like murder us right away, so I can't like demonstrate this live. But by when it yellow boxes, that's when you want to go ahead and call. That means that someone has targeted you and has not fired. And once they've red boxed you, that means that they are aggressed. And they have a session timer of 1 minute. They can't go through a gate or, do stuff. That means they're aggressed. They're aggressed, and they are actively shooting at you, and you will die if an entire fleet locks you up. And there's a little spreadsheet there that shows a flowchart on the right-hand side that says, when you should call for reps. I recommend rebinding those two keys that you can remember. I rebound my, let's see, what is it? AS is for shield. And I'll point out that there's other keys that are helpful as well. The Q key, for instance, the upper left-hand corner of your keyboard. This is your approach key. Use that constantly. The W key is your orbit key. Your E is your keep at range key. And your control key is your target key. If you remember just 4 keyboard shortcuts, those are going to be the ones that are the most impactful for you. No, yeah, don't use the need backup. I'm going to go ahead and type these as well. If you guys forget, we went ahead and we looked at the selected items in the upper right-hand corner. You can hover over them and it says what they are if you don't remember what they are. The other ones that are useful is the C track. So you can go ahead and track them in space. You can zoom in on me if you want to hit C and click on me. And realize that you can do this within within the fleet window or the watch list or the overview, any of them. And it'll zoom your camera in. You can also use Alt. If you do Alt on a ship, you can see when they warp away because it'll break the camera and send it back to you. So that's very handy to know when they've warped off. They're attempting to start warp. And by the way, it's when they start warp. You can't zoom in on something that is starting warp. So. And then the final one that I think is the most helpful one is double click. You can double click and approach anything. So I'd like everyone to go ahead and double click and approach Rixla. Double click and you can do this from the watch list. You can do this from the overview. You can do this in space. There's a lot of places for you to double click that you can go ahead and approach. I'd like everyone to approach Rixla, R-I-X. Because we have our micro drives, we are all going very, very fast. We should give a little bounce here, so that'll be amusing. Because we did approach, Rixla could go ahead and track us perfectly with guns, so that's a little scary. So it might be better for us to go ahead and do an orbit. So I'd like everyone to hold down W and go ahead and hit and do an orbit at your optimal on Rixla. We're not opening fire or anything like that. Because Rixla is moving as well, you're going to go ahead and have your orbit show up kind of in space, and it'll be kind of elliptical. It won't ever match actually what shows up in space, but it just shows you the approximate. When you have your microorbitor running, you will run outside that orbit. So right now, my orbit on this particular slasher is set to 3250. I'm actually orbiting at about 6K, and this is within range of my scrambler, which is 7.5K. So messing with that number to figure out a number that works. I like this, like on the slasher, I use 3250. I'll type that. And you want to go ahead and kind of experiment with what numbers work well for you. The other option we have is something called Keep It Range. Keep It Range is used most often when anchoring or when using a Titan bridge. A Titan bridge will mean that they will launch you across space. And so those, you want to go ahead and be close, so you can go ahead and take the bridge. You can take any gate that's within 2,500 of you. So keeping it range under 2,500 is very important. You can't keep it range on gates. You can orbit gates, though, at 500 and be fine on that. Anyway. Okay, I've gone through a lot. Again, complicated game. Does anyone have any questions?
Are you supposed to turn off your prop mod?
It depends on what you're trying to do. If you are trying to tackle something, you oftentimes will leave it on just because you want to be going fast. If you are trying to get under the guns of a very big ship, you sometimes will go ahead and turn it off. If you're running out of cap, you'll definitely will turn it off. Realize that low skill point characters sometimes struggle with capacitor issues. Well, I don't have any cap. I can run everything on my ship without running out. If you hit Alt F, everyone can do that right now. You can look in the upper right corner of the fitting screen. It says if you're stable or not. And that tells you if you need to run your micro-warp drive. You can run your micro-warp drive all the time, or if you should pulse it, etc. If you pulse it, you won't go as nearly as fast, but you can drop your signature. If you're going very fast and your signature is very low, then you're less likely to be hit. So.
And the reason that I ask is that when I'm orbiting with my afterburner on, I'm always out of range from the scrambler.
Yeah, so you have to adjust your orbit range to include the amount of time, of distance it gives you when you are going fast. So like I said, my orbit range I set to 3250 because I know that I can run my micro warp drive and stay in scrambler range during that time. Okay, I'm going to do one other thing here. There's something called Circle. This is what we use to go ahead and track participation inside fleets here. And we also call those honks. You might see people asking for honks and stuff like that. This shows that I was there without showing up on a kill board. I'll point out that everyone's kill board is public and is how most people tend to measure, measure genitals against each other. For instance, here's mine. It's pretty big. But the thing is that you don't need to go ahead and focus on that. The circle thing allows us to go ahead and show that you showed up in a E-War ship, that you showed up in a Logi ship. A lot of times you'll fit what's called a whore gun to go ahead and whore in a structure. And this shows, or a ship. And this shows that I was there to Z-kill. And you can look yourself up on Z-kill. Even if you're brand new, if you died or killed something or were on a kill, you'll go ahead and show up there. We measure a lot of participation on how many kills you show up on for some things, but it's not a ton. I think it's like the biggest groups are like 40 kills a month, which is, we can do that in a day. So it's very easy to go ahead and show up on these things here. Anyway, right now we're all still anchored up on Rixla, by the way. Rixla, if you want to steer us someplace, that's fine too. So anyway, I think that's it for me. I'm going to link the Caretaker survey. Honk is basically a reference to Untitled Goose Game. Peace was never an option. Let me see if I can find a picture. But the idea is that we are big into here, found it. But we're big into that. That's just kind of our beam thing. So, and then I will go ahead and link a caretaker survey. You can let us know how we did. If there's anything we could be doing better next time, if there's something that I should have spent more time on, or if there are other concerns you have, you can talk. And this is anonymous, so you can talk shit about me. That's fine with that. And then finally, there's also a document that does an onboard debrief. So if you forget these things, you can look at this right here. Oh, sorry. I linked two different things there. There you go. You can ignore the other Infinity Bay thing. By those two documents, you can let us know how we did. We can tell us what we do better. I'm here to answer your questions, and I'll be here for at least 15 minutes, if not more. And once again, we're all in this together. We're all playing a kind of crappy game. Eve is 90% boring. It really is. And then about 9%, it's pretty okay. It's a good game. You know, if you have a couple friends, etc., you're flying with pilots. And there's this 1% that is just like incredible, that no other game matches. You can have 8,000 of your closest friends all show up in the same system, and you do something that affects everything. It's a transformational game. So that's the reason I play it. I've been playing for 16 years in about a week or so. So anyway, so that's it for me. I'm here to answer your questions. Let us know what you think. And we look forward to flying. I'll point out Standing Fleet runs 24/7, and there's not always combat, but there is always people shitting up comms that are available to talk to. And you can feel free to ask us any questions in New Beans anytime. We will try to answer them. Even if we can't, we'll at least point you in the right direction. So thank you so much for coming.